Algebra I, 11.9c, odd and even variables. One type of problem on math tests is the odd and even problems. You'll see it on math placement tests for college or SATs or ACTs. You might even see it in the GED, so it's on many standardized tests. A variable is given to be an odd or an even number, and you must figure out if the given expressions are odd or even, or if the variable is odd or even if it doesn't tell you which one it is. And it helps to understand the relationship and patterns involved for addition and multiplication of odd and even numbers. So I have a little chart here. If we add an odd number to an odd number, our answer is going to be even. And if we multiply an odd number to an odd number, our answer is going to be odd. When we add an odd and even, it's going to be odd. And we multiply an odd and even, it's going to be even. And doesn't matter whether we add or multiply two even numbers, it's going to be even. So if you can write this down, it's really going to help you, unless you can remember it, but that's a lot to remember with all the other things that you need to remember. So this is just a little table that helps you figure out if an answer is going to be even or odd, okay? So I wrote it again up here so that we can reflect on it. All right, so there's the adding on this side and the multiplying on this side. And it's really obvious that multiplying or adding evens is just even straight across, isn't it? But the odd ones, when you add them, it's even. And when you multiply them, they're odd. Isn't that strange how it does that? So here's the first problem. If x is odd, which of these can't be odd? So we use our chart. And this 3x means 3 times x. Well, if x is odd, so I color-coded it to be pink, that means we have an odd times an odd. And according to our chart, an odd times an odd makes an odd. So that means this part right here is odd. Now we're going to add an even. An odd plus an even makes an odd. See? So I had to do this part first for the multiplication and then figure out if the answer was even or odd. And then I had to do the even or odd that's being added here. See? And if we have an odd times an odd, then that's going to make an odd. Now we have an odd plus an even, just like this one, and it's odd. And we can use our chart and compare the multiplication to see if it's even or odd all the way down, and what would happen if we added an even or odd number. And it turns out that E is the correct answer. When we multiply an odd times an odd, we get an odd. And then when we add an odd plus an odd makes an even. So E is the only one out of all of these that can't be odd. We just make an observation of which digits and variables are odd or even, and we use the chart to determine which expression will be odd or even. Now, another way to figure this out is to use an actual odd number, like a 1 or a 3, in place of the variable. And if the variable is supposed to be even, replace it with a 2, an even number, and then do the math to see if the answer is going to come out odd or even. So let's try doing this. So if we don't know if b is odd or even, which expression must equal an even integer? So remember, integers are positive, negative numbers. So we don't know if b is even or odd, so I made it brown. But we're going to do b cubed plus 3. Well, if b is an odd number, now remember, it's got to make it so that no matter if b is an even or odd number, we come out with an even, okay? So let's try plugging in an odd number for b. So let's use a 3. Well, 3 cubed is 27. It's 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 is 27. And 27 plus 3 is 30. That's an even number. So that one gave us an even number. So that might work. But then when we plug in an even number for b, 2 times 2 times 2, 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8 plus 3 is 11. That's odd. So no. That one doesn't work. It's got to be even for both of them to make this true. When we plug in for 5b plus 1, we've got 5 times 3. That's an odd number. It makes a 15, which is an odd number. When we add 1, it makes an even. So that one's starting out on the right track. That's even. When we plug in an even number and add a 1 to it, we come up with an odd. So no, that one doesn't work. For 4b plus 2, when we plug in an odd number, it comes out even. And when we plug in an even number, it comes out even. So yeah, this is the one. This is the one we're looking for. See? Because they both turned out even when we plugged in an odd and an even number. And when we try these, this is an even answer when we plug in a 3 for this expression. And when we plug in an even one, we get an odd number. So that didn't work. They're not both even. And this one, if you notice, all of these, when we plugged in an odd number, we got an even answer, which made us continue on to see if the second one was going to be even. But in this one, when we plugged in an odd number into b squared plus b plus 3, we got an odd answer. So really, we didn't even need to do this. We could have just saved our time and gone on to the next problem on the test, because it says that it must be even. So if this one's turning out odd, that already ruined it for this one. See? When we use an odd number and it turns out odd, we don't need to try an even number. We already know it's not the right one. See? They both have to be even. Okay? So, this is really helpful if you see these on the test, and if you know this rule and can figure out a way to memorize it, maybe you can make up a little rhyme or poem in your head, or some way to remember this. That's going to help you if you see that on a test, okay? Our next video is 12.1a. We're finished with Chapter 11. We've only got to do Chapter 12 and Chapter 13, and we're done with Algebra 1. This next chapter is about functions. And we'll talk about identifying functions. And of course, in this playlist, all the videos have links in their descriptions that you can just click and find a previous similar or helpful video on the topic. And we were talking about the Pythagorean Theorem and using it to find the length of legs or hypotenuse of a right triangle. We even did the distance formula. And we had a word problem, and we did some equations with radicals, okay? So if you want to click on those to get a review, that'll really help you, especially if you have a Chapter 11 test coming up, or a test on radical expressions and equations if your textbook has a different chapter, okay? So I'll see you next video. On to Chapter 12, on to functions. Bye.